I'm Robert Griffin, the Executive Minister here at the Sunshine Cathedral in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I want to thank you for joining us for worship via the internet today. And if you are ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, let me personally invite you to stop by and worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. We also invite you to join us on our Facebook group or follow us on Twitter. But for this moment, let's go inside and see what exciting worship opportunity lay in store for us.
May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to one another. Amen.
A reading from the Wisdom of Goethe. Correction does much, but encouragement does more. In these human words, God's voice is heard. Our second reading is from the Wisdom of Roy Eugene Davis. Most people work hard for their money. They exchange time and effort for the money they earn. Are you making wise use of your money, life, or are you wasting it? Are you working merely to provide for your body, or are you spending a portion of your money, your life, to help others, to spread the message of enlightenment so that at least part of your life is lived for the good of humankind? In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Our third reading is from the Gospel according to John. Jesus appeared again to the disciples, this time at the Tiberias Sea, the Sea of Galilee. This is how he did it. Simon Peter, Thomas, nicknamed Twin, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the brother Zebedee, and two other disciples were together. Simon Peter announced, "I'm going fishing." The rest of them replied, "We're going with you." They went out and got in the boat. They caught nothing that night. When the sun came up, Jesus was standing on the beach, but they didn't recognize him. Jesus spoke to them, "Good morning. Did you catch anything for breakfast?" They answered, "No." He said, "Throw the net off the right side of the boat and see what happens." They did what he said. All of a sudden, there were so many fish in it, they weren't strong enough to pull it in. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
When I was growing up, my father was one of the managers in the computer department in the main industry of our little Pennsylvania town, which was the glass industry. He got that job right out of college, just as computers were fairly new to the marketplace. And this was the late 1960s, early 1970s, so I have totally dated myself here. But I remember the computers, they were huge. They were so big, and they filled up an entire room. And as a kid, I was so impressed by that, with all the blinking lights and all the noise that they made. And it still is startling to me that my cell phone now has more memory than those huge, big computers did back in the day. But what my father had to do for part of his career was to travel to the various glass factories around the country and get them set up, get them connected to these new computer systems. A few years ago, my dad told me of someone who at that time was an accounting manager in one of these factories, and he was really, really unhappy that he was going to have to put his work on the computers. He used those old paper ledgers for everything, and now they told him that he had to be connected to these newfangled computers. And he began making excuses as to why he couldn't do it. He told my dad that he was concerned about the people that worked for him, that they would lose their jobs. But my dad assured him that the people would be staying in their jobs and they would just have the opportunity to learn a new way of doing things. They would acquire a new skill set, which could be really valuable. Well, that's not what the guy wanted to hear. And the conversion went through. His work was moved to the computers, and he stuck around the company for just a few more months, and then he left. He was just so uncomfortable with the idea of change that he left a really good job. He just couldn't get beyond the "it's never been done that way before" mindset. And I think we all know people like that. And if we're honest, sometimes it's us, too, really, really reluctant to make changes in our lives. A few weeks ago, on Easter Sunday, we heard quite a lot about resurrection, and that is what Easter is about. But think for a moment what resurrection means. It means new life. It means new beginnings, new possibilities. Resurrection is about going through something very difficult and into a place in which hope appears. And that's where we are now. That's what it means to be an Easter people. We've been through the Lenten journey. We've been reminded that Golgotha doesn't have the last word. And now we're at the point where the rubber hits the road, where we step into living the hard work of the Easter message. In the story that we just heard from John's Gospel, the disciples are going through a tough time as well. Their dear friend Jesus had been executed by Rome, and this group, these disciples, were known to be followers of Jesus' inclusive and welcoming message. We heard last Sunday of the disciples locking themselves in a room for fear of what could happen to them. But they were offered a second chance. They got what our senior pastor called a second wind, in which they could move beyond their fears and do the work that they were called to do. And today we hear that the disciples have decided to go fishing. Since we are a different kind of church, I thought it was important that we hear a different kind of fishing story. And there are a couple of points that I want to make regarding this really meaningful and power-filled passage. First, we know from our studies and from other readings that prior to their work with Jesus, several of the disciples made their living by fishing. Biblical scholars believe that by including this passage in John's Gospel, the writer was trying to convey what the Jesus community would be like after the execution of Jesus. This community probably felt confused, and they were probably disoriented. They probably just didn't know what to do next. These same biblical scholars state that because the disciples reverted back to their old vocation, that they just didn't have enough faith, that the disciples should be diminished or thought less of because of what they did. And I got to tell you, I don't really care for that interpretation. The biblical scholars don't seem to be too terribly forgiving. I think the disciples were just being human. I think after all they had been through, they probably wanted to go back to something that was familiar to them, something that would seem comfortable, and probably something that seemed very safe. And I understand that need for comfort, for familiarity. We probably all do. But as comfortable as the past may seem for us, we can't go back. And quite honestly, I don't want to go back. It's great to remember the wonderful things that have occurred in our lives, and it's important to honor them. I remember with love and with affection some of the events that have occurred and that have made me the person that I am. But though we may pine for the past, it's gone. It's done. We cannot go there again. It is very easy, though, to make the past seem like just the best time ever, to romanticize it, to remember only the good things, and to want to go back again. So it is good to remember, but we can't stay there. Feminist blogger Roxane Gay tells us, nostalgia is powerful. It is natural, even human, to long for the past, particularly when we can remember our histories as better than they were. And author Susanna Kearsley tells us, the past can teach us, nurture us, but it cannot sustain us. The essence of life is change, and we must move ever forward, or the soul will wither and die. If we can move beyond the past, if we can move beyond the way that we've always done things, then it is quite possible that we will encounter the richness of new experiences and of new opportunities, and we will have our own personal resurrection experience. And a second point. What happened to the disciples when they decided to go fishing and they cast their nets in the water? Nothing. That's what happened. Nothing. They caught no fish. But something pretty incredible happens in this story. A stranger, who we later find out is Jesus, tells them, try something different. Try fishing from the other side. Whoa! What a revelation that must have been to them. And often that is the reminder that each of us needs, a reminder to try something new, a new way of doing things. How often in our lives do we feel stuck? Like maybe we're just kind of going nowhere, when nothing really positive seems to be happening. Maybe you've had the thought, this relationship just isn't working, or this job just isn't doing it for me, or I've put on some weight and I'm feeling disheartened and maybe a little bit lost, just not sure what to do next. I got to tell you, about a year ago, I felt that way myself. I knew that I had put on some weight and I needed to do something about it. I felt unhealthy, and my clothes were tight, and I truly just didn't feel good. I really wanted to do something about it, to make a positive change, but it is so easy to just keep doing what we're doing, isn't it? And in my case, eating and sitting around too much was what I knew best. I excelled at it. I was really, really good at it. So I tried something new, something a little different. I began eating a little bit less. I stopped with the Snicker bars, and I stopped with the potato chips, and I began to integrate a few more salads into my diet. And I lost a few pounds, but not a whole lot. And I felt a little disappointed. I felt like nothing was happening. A friend of mine asked me how the weight loss was going, and I told her that I was a little disappointed that I hadn't accomplished more. And she asked me, "How much exercise are you getting?" Whoa, okay, there's my experience. I'm getting none. So I cast the net on the other side. I began doing something different. I began taking a walk every day. Not a lot, not at first. I walked 20 minutes for the first week or two, and then I increased a bit, up to 25 minutes, and then to 30 minutes, and I began walking more and exercising more, and I continued with the better eating habits. And guess what happened? That new thing, it worked. Here it is, 11 months later, and I've lost over 40 pounds just by doing that new thing. My friends, if something isn't working, try something new. Try something different. Cast the nets on the other side of the boat and see what happens. It could be the miracle you've been waiting for, but you will never know unless you try. It is a miracle when disappointment turns to accomplishment. It is a miracle when lack is replaced by abundance, when we can focus on the positive that is in our lives, and when we are willing to move beyond what frightens us the most, the scarcity, the nothing. That is when miracles occur, and that is when we receive abundance in our lives. There is a book which is currently on the New York Times bestseller list that I'm really enjoying. It's one of those books that you pick up on Tuesday and you finish Tuesday night. It's really a good book. The title is On Fire: The 7 Choices to Ignite a Radically Inspired Life, and it was written by John O'Leary. And he has a really powerful and interesting life story. As a 9-year-old child, there was an accident in which 80% of his body received 3rd-degree burns. And he survived that with the help of his family and medical personnel and others who encouraged him whenever fear would threaten to overtake him. He spends his life now as an inspirational speaker, helping people live more profoundly and with more passion. There is a chapter in his book about how to move through stagnation and into a deeper growth experience. And he invites the reader into a thoughtful place of reflection and of personal questions. And I want to share a portion of that with you. He writes, "What's really possible through your life? This is a question that can't be fully answered if you're looking down at your feet. Anxiety and fear will keep you stagnant. What if I fail? What if I am too old? What if I never walk again? In looking down, all you see is your shoes, the dirt. All you feel is discouragement, struggle. But you can instead look up, stretch, and breathe life and possibility into every moment. This is your day. Remember the powerful possibility that lived in your heart as a child. Put your superhero cape back on. Begin daring to dream again. What if this is just the beginning? What if I could actually succeed? What if I can make a profound impact in another's life? What if I stretch actively forward each day? Isn't it time to risk it all in order to build something, inspire another, and become someone great? Isn't it time to stretch courageously toward the limitless possibility of your life? Isn't it time you get moving, start dreaming, and begin growing? Growth is the only evidence of life. I love that. Growth is the only evidence of life. My friends, our choices make up our lives. We can choose to be happy or not. We can choose to be grateful or not. We can choose to let go of the past or not. We can choose to make a positive change in our life or not. I truly hope that each one of us will make that choice to grow, to be open to change, to cast our nets and to fish from the other side, because that is when the most abundant miracles can occur in our lives. And this is the good news. Amen.
Thank you for joining us today here at the Sunshine Cathedral. If you're ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, we invite you to stop by and worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. If you'd like to make a donation to the Sunshine Cathedral, or if you'd like to find out other resources that the Cathedral has to offer, please visit us at www.sunshinecathedral.org. Until the next time, we look forward to seeing you here at the Sunshine Cathedral.